everyone. In this video, I'll be covering home safety, which is so important when providing care to a person living with dementia. We want to make sure that their environment provides security, familiarity, and that it is safe. And there's some tips I'll be sharing with you. I will walk throughout the home and I'll point out some safety concerns that you might need to address for your loved one in their environment. But there's also some things you might not consider, such as making sure that your loved one has proper eyewear. Sometimes people living with dementia, they have issues with their visual spatial relations. They might not be able to see things that are similar in color, like transitioning from carpet to tile. They might also see more shadows and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that they have properly fitting eyewear with the right prescriptions. Also, hearing aids are really important. You might not think about it, but when we're in our living environment, what we hear can signal things like a pet that's coming up close or a doorbell ringing. So you want to be sure that they have proper hearing aids, and that also can help with communication. And then finally, assistive devices, such as a walker, wheelchair, or cane. That can really help them navigate their environment and make sure that they're stable at all times. So now that we've covered that, let's start with the kitchen, and I'll share some safety tips. So follow me. So when you're thinking about the kitchen, there are a variety of things that come to mind that you'll want to consider. And I'm first going to show you the stove. We'll cover that first. So on the stove, it's possible that an individual living with dementia could accidentally leave the stove on for an extended period of time. Sometimes that's one of the first signs of cognitive loss. So what you can actually do is remove these little dials and store them, and then when you do need to use the oven, you can always replace them. But that way your loved one can't accidentally turn the stove on and leave it on. Another thing to consider when you're cooking and using heavy cookware is that the items you use most frequently, that they're stored kind of at a reachable destination. So for example, instead of storing your heavy pots below in a cabinet like this where you really have to reach down and the person could lose their balance, you could instead store this kind of an item with easy to install hooks. So you could have a line of pans that they could easily grab off the wall that doesn't require as much effort. Something else that you want to think about is anytime you have high storage, you don't want to put everyday use items up high. We really want to avoid them having to use a step stool to reach up for things in high cabinets. So again, maybe store them on the counter, or you can add some additional storage with those types of hooks that I just mentioned. We also want to consider the tools that we use in the kitchen, such as knives. And while hopefully someone living with dementia wouldn't injure themselves, it's better to be safe than sorry. You might want to, instead of storing these at eye level, you might want to store them out of sight, out of mind, maybe in a drawer or in a cabinet. That way, it minimizes the risk to the individual. And then also, when we think about the kitchen and our cleaning products, we want to be sure those are safe and secure. An individual might mistake something like a jug of bleach for a jug of milk. And that just makes my stomach hurt thinking about it. But it is a possibility, and I have heard of families having issues with things like that. So you might want to consider a lock. So you could store all those chemicals in this kind of a cabinet, and then use one of these really easy to use locks that could make sure that it's safe and secure for your loved one. And then finally, when we think about the kitchen, the refrigerator can be a safety hazard in that, if we're not cleaning it out regularly and making sure that those expired foods are being thrown away, the person could accidentally eat something that was expired and make themselves sick. So you want to be sure that you're regularly cleaning out that refrigerator. So those are some great kitchen tips for you to consider. So next we're going to go to the bathroom. That's where the majority of falls occur within the home. So I'm going to offer some tips on how to make the environment safer for your loved one living with dementia. Follow me. So first we need to consider the water temperature. You want to be sure that it's not hot enough to burn your loved one living with dementia. So you'll want to look at your water heater, likely in the basement, and adjust the dial to ensure that you can't get the water hot enough to cause burns. Next we'll look at the toilet. If you want to spend a little more, you could consider a brand new toilet that sits up a little higher, especially if your loved one has trouble getting on and off the toilet, or they have these handy seat risers. Easy to install. This one, you don't have to remove the toilet seat. There are some options that replace the toilet seat altogether. Another great option are ones that have a little more support and stability that come out almost like little handheld railings on either side, so your loved one can, push on and off of those railings when standing from the toilet. Something else to consider, this is all white, so you might want to have a colored toilet seat riser for spatial, visual spatial difference. The person might be able to better see it if it's a different color than the rest of the toilet. Some other things to consider in the bathroom are things in the shower. So someone living with dementia, they might be a little intimidated if water is coming from a traditional shower head. So you might want to consider one of these handy portable shower heads. They're really easy to install, and that way you as the caregiver can control where the water goes. You can avoid the head, you could do the back of the head to get that shampoo out. Again, you can control the water pressure better, farther away, closer. It really is a handy tool in the bathroom. So one more thing you could consider is this bench. Some of the benches are circular, some of them are more of a square or rectangle bench. Some even have a back so your loved one can recline. But you put this shower seat in the shower so that your loved one doesn't get fatigued. Sometimes you stand in the shower, 5-10 minutes. That might just be long enough to wear out your loved one's legs. So having that seat handy can be a great way to ensure that they can, be comfortable throughout the entire bathing experience. I also want to talk about the flooring in a bathroom because oftentimes you have tile and that can create a slick situation quite literally. And so we want to be sure that there are rugs in the bathroom, but rugs can also be a trip hazard. So you might want to consider some double-sided tape on a traditional rug. So you can get this in your local hardware store and you can place the double-sided tape around all the edges and then place the rug on the floor. It just adds some extra security to ensure that that rug's not going to go anywhere. Another option is to purchase a rug that already has a rubber backing. I love these because they can easily be placed on the floor. You could additionally use some tape if you want a little extra security there. And then for inside the shower, you want to consider a rubber mat that has these nice little suction cups to be sure that your loved one is less likely to trip when they're getting in and out of the shower and moving or bath or moving around. And then finally, I want to go over grab bars. I often get asked, should I use a traditional grab bar you drill into the wall, or should I use a suction cup grab bar? My recommendation is the one that screws into the wall, because really suction cup grab bars are really for balance only, not for bearing any weight. So these are going to be more secure, and you'll want to consider the placement of a grab bar. So I'll walk you through that now. If you have a bathtub shower combo, you'll want to place the grab bar outside so that your loved one can use it for stability getting in and out of the bathtub. You also want to consider one here. It'll depend on the height of the tub, the height of your loved one. But you want to be sure it's in a spot where they can get in and out of the tub and use this for stability. Now, if you just have a standing shower, no tub, you want to consider one here outside the shower and an additional one in line almost with the shower head so that they can hold onto it for balance, while they're shampooing, that sort of thing. You want to consider grab bars too around the toilet. I mentioned earlier that you could have the toilet seat riser with the handles in a situation like this where there's no wall next to the toilet. But let's say there is a wall here. You could install a grab bar so that the person could use it when they're getting down on and off the toilet. And there's some other spots around the house that you might not consider a grab bar, but they can be really handy. So I'll go over that next. Any anytime you have a few steps in or out of the house, that's another great place to consider a grab bar, like the garage or an outdoor entrance to the house. So here I'm at the back door, there's a couple of stairs, so I would want to place a grab bar right here. That way I can hold on for stabilization as I go in and out of the house. And in the garage, if you're worried about space, they have these great grab bars that kind of come down from the wall. And then when you're done using it, you can put it back up against the wall to save some space. So no matter the location within your house, there are grab bar options that will fit any environment. Some additional tips to consider would be to make sure that you've removed any clutter from pathways that your loved one travels frequently throughout the home. You'll want to make sure that there are not stacks of newspaper that could potentially stand in the way, especially at the top of staircases. You also want to make sure that there are no cords over the pathways that could be a potential tripping hazard. You might want to reroute the cord behind the couch or tape the cord down to the floor, again to prevent trips and falls. Also, area rugs, while they can be beautiful and decorative, they can also be a trip hazard. So you might want to remove them altogether or use that double-sided tape I mentioned earlier to secure the rugs to the floor. You also want to think about staircases, another place where falls can frequently occur. Usually staircases have at least one railing to hold on to as you go up and down the stairs. You might want to consider adding another railing on the other side so that the person can use both rails to provide stability as they go up and down the staircase. You also want to make sure that those stairways are well lit, and lighting is another thing to consider throughout the entire home. So you could put some lighting under the kitchen cabinets. There's easy ones that you can stick up there. You can consider motion sensored lights in closets. So when you open the closet door, there's lighting in there as well. And especially in hallways and at nighttime, those motion sensored lights can be really handy, or just adding some additional lighting in a hallway can really go a long way in preventing falls. And then one final thing, while it's important to remove clutter and make sure pathways are clear, you at times want to rearrange furniture so it prevents wandering. You might want to rearrange it in a way that cues the person away from the exits of the home or certain rooms of the house. And so I have a video on wandering that I hope you will check out, where I go into more detail on how you can do this in a space such as this. All of these tips, I hope, have been helpful to you in providing a safer environment for your loved one living with dementia. Thank you so much for watching.